spinning, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we got 4 check marks. I got to hit the down arrow. Okay. So you give me a second here while we are trying to get it going.
Well, everything's getting synced up.
Absolutely. Let me see. Come on, Chad. Edit. Save changes.
Thank you for bearing with us.
Yeah, gosh.
While we get going here, welcome. I see a ton of people on YouTube already, so welcome for being. Thank you for being here, and do a quick intro and get going. There's a lot to talk about in this today, especially with quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk quarterbacks. I think I got it. I think I figured it out. Doing it live, as they say. All right, we're running right now. Doing it live. First off, we want to say hello to everybody, right? Jason O'Neill in the house. I saw you talking with him. Stephen Baumgartner, our favorite Husker fan in the house. I'm an Iowa fan, so we like to give each other a few jabs. Jason O'Neill. And let's just, right out the gate, Jason, we'll get to you real quick. We'll say a real hello. Kareem is in the house. Sebastian, Bob Skinner, Jason O'Neill. So welcome in, guys. This is Broncos for breakfast. Still kind of getting used to that. Scott, welcome in. I didn't scare you off the first time. That's great to have you back. How you doing?
No. I thought it really went well, and I love the idea of Broncos for breakfast. And when we're talking NFL draft, I invited everybody from outside of necessarily the Broncos, and we'll boot them out if they get obnoxious. But when we're talking quarterbacks, we're talking half the draft right now. Who isn't interested in one of these quarterbacks? We've talked about it already. So this is the most excited I've been about a draft in years. In a long time, and not just because the Falcons are picking top 5 and I'm interested again, but because the premier positions of quarterback, there's trades, there's intrigue, there's a generational talent. I think you hate to use the word can't miss, and I won't use that about a quarterback. I will not use can't miss about a quarterback. But I think there's some really impact players in the positions that are 6 or 7 deep. So if you throw in 5 quarterbacks, now you're talking top 11 picks, where if you take one of those guys, you should be excited, even if it's not the guy you want. As I don't want the Falcons to take Kyle Pitts, and we can get into that, in a little bit later. But I'd be really excited to watch him play. So I don't think he's the best fit for helping the Falcons win now in the near or long term. But I'd certainly be excited to watch him play in a Falcons uniform. And to me, that's what's so exciting about this draft is when you're sitting in the top 10, like the Broncos are. It's an exciting draft. Whether you trade up or stay put, you're going to get a player you're going to be excited to watch.
Yeah, it is unfortunate for the Broncos just how the tiebreakers work out. That they go 5-11 this year, but they had, I think, the second hardest strength of schedule in football, and that kicks them way down the draft board. I mean, if they would have lost that Chargers game, which I know people aren't cheering for losses, but ask the Philadelphia Eagles if that matters. They got an extra first-round pick out of tanking that last game. So I'm very much long-term thinking. If it's a meaningless game and they lose it, meh. Kind of like the Raiders game 2 years ago where the Broncos would have picked 10 and they could have had my boy Tristan Wirfs, so I was banging the table for him, was like an all-pro level tackle last year. But is what it is. It's easy to say that from where I'm sitting compared to the locker room and the organization at large.
And Nick, frankly, I hate the system. I hate the system of rewarding losers. I hate it.
Yeah.
If you forget what you think about international football and soccer, the sport, but how they handle the general management and of the teams is fascinating. And when you get more into that, and then you go back and look at this Marxist idea of rewarding losers and tanking and punishing, what's the word I'm looking for? When you want to win, you punish the people who have goals and try and go and they get punished. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So the tanking bothers me, but it's the system we've got, and I'm going to be excited about the players that come to my team.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, the Broncos are not used to picking up here, but we're starting to come a little bit more familiar with the top of the draft. Hopefully that's about to change. But guys, this is Broncos for breakfast. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be here going up until the draft every Tuesday and Thursday. We might pivot from there, but just know 8 a.m. Mountain Time, God's time, as I like to say, for Broncos for breakfast. You can join Scott and myself. Obviously, follow Scott on Twitter. It's at Scout Kennedy. I don't know how good your guys' vision is out there this morning. Maybe you're still a little blurry eyed. The coffee hasn't hit the veins yet, but that's at Scout Kennedy. You can follow myself also at Nick Kendell, MHH. Guys, this is also a part of Mile High Huddle. Follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and check out the page. I mean, we got a lot of content. Obviously, the draft is coming down the tracks. The Broncos roster is still kind of just taking shape. All the moves and fallout from how active and how good I would say George Payton's move to really bring this strengthen this Broncos roster. Really important, guys. If you can subscribe, like, and share if you're joining us on YouTube. If you're joining us on Facebook, click those thumbs up or the heart react. I see we already got 5 reactions in here. That's great. Also, guys, Duke's got a big favor for us. Go to his YouTube channel. He said that he just broke down a bunch of Alabama tape. And we know Vic Fangio, he's got some connection to those Alabama tapes. I mean, Broncos, they just broke the trend. John Elway doesn't draft Bama guys. Well, we got Jerry Jeudy in here last year. So make sure you check out Scott's work at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. And yeah, let's talk quarterbacks, man. I'm really excited. Let's real quick, the chat again. If you're going to ask, I'm going to do it for you. Eli, send me a shout out. There you go. Eli. See, you got the old school D. That's my favorite. Chad giving me a hard time. He did it. You're welcome, Chad. We're doing it live. Bill saying Fields or Lance, no matter what. Well, I'm excited to talk about those guys. Victor coming in here. Let's go, Nick from RG. Well, let's go, Scott, as well. Come on. We got to give a warm Bronco welcome here. I know he's a Falcons fan, but maybe the Broncos are going to trade up to 4. We need to get as much inroads as we can, guys. So I guess we'll kick it off. I haven't talked too much about him yet, but I would really love to hear some Trevor Lawrence. I know that that's out of the realm of possibility for the Broncos, but you said something interesting where generational, you don't want to put the can't miss label on him, but I like Trevor Lawrence, not a perfect prospect. And I think that while he is my number 1, there is some argument for the guys under him that could be better than him, right? Like the last few drafts, the guy who's gone number 1 has not been the best quarterback in the class. So that's a possibility in this class too. So I want to hear what you have to say about Trevor Lawrence.
Okay. First off, I want to talk a little bit about some philosophy and scouting on here.
Yeah.
One of the things I've always said about the quarterback position is I'd rather have the coach than the player, especially when I'm talking about college. If the player's in the wrong scheme, surrounded by the wrong talent, it doesn't matter how good the quarterback is at that point because he's not going to succeed. Whereas you see quarterbacks, the example I would use is on Tuesday we were talking about Broncos running backs. The player isn't necessarily as important as the scheme and the offensive line. So it's even more so with the quarterback position that I would rather have. So when we talk about who's the best quarterback, who ends up being the best quarterback largely depends on where he is. And if you're drafting this high, you're probably not a real good team. And it's tough on those guys. So being on a better team a little farther down can be advantageous for that quarterback's career. You really, in Cleveland's turned it around a little bit, but we watched Cleveland mess up number 1 quarterbacks for a long time. That isn't necessarily on the quarterback. But Trevor Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence, and I'm gonna give a shout out to my friend Chad Simmons, who has been a high school scout in the state of Georgia for a while, one of the best in the business. And we were running a campaign at scout.com for who's the next guy, who is that guy, and we asked Chad. And he says, Trevor Lawrence. Didn't even blink. And Trevor Lawrence was in 9th grade. And that's the thing. And I am jaded enough. I've seen so many of these guys that we've hyped up fall flat on their faces that I'm skeptical about pretty much everything. So, I go and watch Trevor Lawrence and I went, yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy. And it's all about the mobility, the arm strength, the intangibles, the size, every tool that you could possibly ask for. He's got it. So, how does he react being the guy from the point where he's 14 or 15 years old till now? Well, he was the number 1 prospect in the country. He's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Got a national championship under his belt. I'd say he's handled the pressure of doing it. He can make all the throws without a doubt, make some of the throws that other people can't. Durability isn't really in question. Any question you might have, it's like, what question do you have? There's a check mark next to his name. So for me, he is easily, without a doubt, to me, the best prospect. If I've got the number 1 pick, it's Trevor Lawrence, and I don't even question it for the NFL style game. Now, if you drop Urban Meyer back in college, he might not be his guy. He likes a power running quarterback that can move the chains. He might want a guy like Trey Lance, but for the NFL game, it's a no-brainer. It's the easiest pick you can make, and it's Trevor Lawrence, and that's how I feel about him, and that's why you haven't heard any chatter at all about Jacksonville moving out of that number 1 pick, even when you've got a team like the 49ers throwing around 3 first-round draft picks.
Yeah, I mean, he's a pretty special talent. I have a hard time coming up with a comparison for him because, I mean, for being the thrower that he is or the arm talent that he has, I mean, we saw it in the playoff game 2 years ago. The guy's got jets. I mean, he can scoot as well. You can do some read option stuff with him, and he's a threat. I mean, he's going to hold that edge defender because if he pulls it back, he can go 30, 40 yards. And one thing that I really like about Trevor Lawrence that I think is different than most quarterbacks. What is he? 6'6", a little gangly. Obviously, he lost a bunch of weight after shoulder surgery. Hopefully he'll put that back on. A little scrawny right now, but get him in the weight room. He'll get it back on. It's just how twitched up he is, right? Like for being a quarterback the size that he is, typically those guys are a little bit, I mean, you saw it with Brock Osweiler, right? Like the big limbs, they can't move that quickly. There's not that acceleration. That's not with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he is quick with his mechanics, with his release, with how he can climb the pocket, with how he can escape the pocket. And typically with the bigger quarterbacks, you don't see that as much. That's why the game, I feel like in general, is trending to guys 6'2", 6'1", 6'3", because the long limbs. I mean, it's just physics, right? Like the farther from the ground you are, the more the less balance you're going to have. So Trevor Lawrence, very twitched up. I'm having a hard time with a really good comp for him. Obviously, the Peyton Manning one, that's the Heat 416. You got one. Okay, let's hear it.
For me, when you're talking about like the best quarterback prospect since, it's Andrew Luck. And Andrew Luck was a little thicker, but if you go back and look at the combine numbers that Andrew Luck had, he would have been top 5 with the linebackers. People never really spoke of Andrew Luck as being the athlete that he was for one reason or another that I'm not going to get into while there's a live camera going. But Andrew Luck was an elite athlete, and the surest thing of a pick that you could come up with. So for me, that's as close as a comp I can come up with for Trevor Lawrence is Andrew Luck.
You might push back a little bit on this one, and this might scare some Bronco fans a little bit, but not what we saw in college, but what we saw last year. What do you think about Justin Herbert as a stylistic comp, just because of the size and the twitchiness and the arm talent?
Yeah, I haven't watched him a ton. In college, I think it's similar, except running that offense that he ran in college was drastically different. I didn't watch him a ton in the NFL, and honestly, once they get to the NFL, I kind of pass them on. I'm like, I'm done. I'm more interested in the guys coming up, and then once they make it, I'll check and see. I want to see how I did. Because going back to you say, Scott's a Falcon fan. Well, you know who I'm a bigger fan of? Me. I'm a bigger fan of me. And if I say Trevor Lawrence is the top guy in this draft, I don't care if he goes to the Saints. I want to be right. So I said that with I went to Auburn. I've said the number one guy for Alabama a lot of times, starting with Andre Smith, and Julio Jones and Mark Barron. And when I say that, when I got a camera in my face and I say, who do I want to, who are they? Who are these guys? I want to be right because I root for me more than anybody.
well, speaking of rooting for you, I'm dropping the your YouTube channel link in the chat right now. So hopefully everybody can go follow Scott's page there to check out his stuff there. I'm sure you have a Trevor Lawrence video up there. I know recently you had the Alabama stuff, but want to check out Trevor Lawrence too.
He's one of the few I don't because there's been no intrigue there. He hasn't been. He wasn't at the Senior Bowl, and I haven't talked with Zach over at Clemson, or any of the guys there because there's really no intrigue there. I'll probably talk with John Shipley soon about that. But we talked with Christopher Walsh last night of Bama Central, and to find out what he's hearing about Mac Jones. So if you want to make that segue, I'm all ready. So
I would love to talk about some Mac Jones. He's somebody that the Broncos, just a Broncos preface on this one. There's been a lot of hints from Broncos insiders that the Broncos are not as interested in one of the top quarterbacks. And some people are making predictions. It's Trey Lance, it's Justin Fields. From who I've spoken to, the guy at the top that they're not as interested in is Mac Jones. So we'll see what that means. I think Mac Jones, obviously you have a value as a first round or a quarterback contract. He's accurate. He's got good anticipation. I think he makes pretty good reads, but the ceiling is capped. He's not a guy. And also in today's NFL, you need to have quarterbacks that can go beyond the X's and O's, that are not completely dependent on the offensive line, in my opinion. And I do not see that projection with Mac Jones unless he becomes this Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning cerebral level quarterback. And that's just a hard ask because those guys are, you're talking about Hall of Fame all-timers.
Well, and it's hard to project. We said before the hardest position to project is quarterback because it depends so much on things you can't measure. I can take a look at a guy that's like Chase Young and look at his measurables. It's like, okay, he's a freak. Does he play hard? Yeah, he does. Okay, he's probably going to be a pretty good football player. But you go. I always call Jay Cutler the dumbest smart guy I ever watched. He's got all of the talent in the world. And sorry, Broncos. I forgot. I think of him as Bears too, but he did end up with the Broncos. I've said for him at Vanderbilt all the way through. I mean, a Vanderbilt quarterback, he's the dumbest smart quarterback I ever watched play. He's got all the physical tools in the world. I don't think he was a great quarterback, relatively speaking to these, the names you just mentioned. I don't think he was a great quarterback. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that his decision making was in question. And I questioned some of that. Was it because when he was at Vanderbilt, he was so much better than everybody else that he got used to having to try to do too much and wasn't able to rein that back in the NFL? Maybe, maybe not. But it's a tough position to look at.
Yeah, and from my understanding with Jay Cutler, obviously a lot of tools, arm talent, athleticism, and an intelligent guy. The question isn't so much that it was the want to. The smoking Jay Cutler meme was it wasn't just cigarettes, from what I've heard, that he was enjoying, especially out there in Colorado.
There's been a few guys that have fallen out of the NFL because of chemistry experiments, including quarterbacks.
Yeah, so I mean, he made a lot of money playing in the league because he's talented and probably one of the best quarterbacks the Bears have ever had. I mean, you guys, Broncos fans, have been wandering the desert here for a quarterback for the last 4 years. Imagine being the Chicago Bears since they were strapping up leather helmets. It's I mean, it can get worse. Yeah, right. Jim, yeah, solid, but yeah, no, it's Mac Jones. Back to Mac Jones, interesting quarterback. How much okay? So pivoting this, and this is just a draft philosophy in general, or draft question in general. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, Ohio State quarterbacks, Alabama quarterbacks, they never succeed. And I think when you're looking back like 40 years, that doesn't matter. Every single quarterback's their own individual. I mean, I went to the same university or college as Ken Anderson, right? Those guys can come from anywhere. Go Augustana. But the small school in Illinois. But I do wonder how much, when it's especially as close as it is, if Tua's struggles this past year lead into anything with Mac Jones, because obviously Tua was playing not with just Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs and the good offensive line, although Mac Jones's offensive line was even better this year. But also he had Najee Harris, Jalen Waddle this year, Devonta Smith, the Heisman winner. Does Tua's struggles his rookie season at all scare you with Mac Jones, or is that something you just completely put in a box?
Not with Mac Jones. No, I think they're two completely different quarterbacks. I think Tua was definitely more raw, more of an athlete playing the quarterback position, whereas Mac Jones is more of a traditional quarterback. He's the guy that's going to put you in the right place, make the throws, and I like the way he can stand up in the face of pressure. I say, the guys at Alabama don't get touched. Well, that's nonsense. Of course they're playing against 6 first-round draft picks on the LSU defense every year. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities for those guys to get pressure, and the way he reacts in pressure and doesn't try to run out of it. One of the lines I remember from someone I was speaking with is, a busted play is not a basis for an offense in the NFL. And Tua is great at improvising, whereas, Mac Jones, I think, is probably better at getting the most out of what has been called for him, and then going through the reads. So, Tua is a little bit on the shorter side, a little bit rawer, and going to a team that wasn't very good. Again, we talked about, as the struggles have to do with the team around him. So all of that factors in that, that doesn't scare me. And we're talking about the quarterbacks and coming from these teams, the USC stigma was like that for a while. Now, you've got to be able to look at those guys and say, do they have all of the tools, or were they? And if we go back another 2 decades, the University of Miami quarterbacks, Ken Dorsey, was Gino Torretta, all these guys, they were good system guys, but they didn't have the NFL tools. And that's on you as a scout. Does Mac Jones, do you think he's got the tools in the NFL? The enough factor, I like to call it. Does he have enough arm strength? Does he have enough size, enough speed? Yeah, he does. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just for me, and we talked about it before the show, in 2018, egg on my face. I thought, Josh Rosen not playing at a good university, running that offense, being the guy for UCLA, not surrounded by talent, still getting them to chug along. I thought that he was going to be a solid quarterback in the NFL. Watching Peyton Manning all those years, I was looking for that cerebral guy who had enough twitch in the pocket to move around. And then I was, after Paxton Lynch's failure, not looking for the arm talent, raw quarterback with the athleticism, although the athleticism for Paxton Lynch, I think, was a little bit overblown. So then I was not as in on Josh Allen. I'm totally 180 this year. Mac Jones, the pocket quarterback, cerebral, limited arm talent, can't really do that much out of structure. I'm out, at least in the top 10, I'm for sure out. And Trey Lance, raw, size, natural arm talent, the youngest, I think one of the youngest players in the class, 1 year of tape, essentially. I don't care. I'm betting on the traits and the the mental makeup, because people just rave about him. And for me, drafting the quarterback, I would rather strike out than get a base on balls, right? To be a baseball analogy. It's home run derby for me. I'm going for top 10 potential guys. Because otherwise I want to be right back in there picking in 2 years, 3 years. And that's easy for me to say. I'm not trying to protect my job in the front office, but a good pivot point here. Trey Lance, a lot of people in here saying Trey Lance is somebody the Broncos are interested in. I know from multiple sources, the Broncos in the quarterback room there, the guy that they are most interested in, it does sound like it's either Justin Fields or Trey Lance. There's some guys in there that prefer one or the other. But I think if the Broncos have a chance at either of them, they might try to go up and get one of them. So Trey Lance, a guy that because of your recruiting background, high school background, maybe not as somebody you've seen coming up through the ranks, obviously, compared to like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, who have been hyped up forever. But Trey Lance, small school in Minnesota, recruited as a safety from Minnesota, wanted to play quarterback. North Dakota State said, we'll get you in here and playing quarterback. And man, that one, even though it's just 1 year tape and there's rawness, you can see the tools and the traits. And if the intelligence work ethic is there paired with that, I'm willing to roll the dice. That's just me personally, being not super risk averse.
Well, and for me, it makes more sense if you're the Atlanta Falcons and someone like the Denver Broncos trying to trade up to get it. You know, do you roll the dice with one pick, or do you want to roll the dice with 3 first-round picks? You know, and that's what would scare me. You're not rolling the dice; you're going all in at that point. Mm-hmm. And with the Falcons sitting there at 4, with Matt Ryan under contract for at least probably 2 more years, that makes a lot of sense for a guy like Trey Lance. Again, I hate throwing around the catchphrases like body of work, but that makes me a little nervous. Yeah. You know, he hasn't done it to the same extent as some of these other guys. Is he a one-hit wonder? You know, how's he going to react? The speed of the game is so much different. You know, can he handle it? You know, and you won't know that until you try it. So I think he's a big risk in the top 5. I do, but risk reward at that point. So I wouldn't want to trade up to get Trey Lance. I would, if you get him and you say it at 9, he's still sitting there and you take him, I'm interested. I'm interested. Yeah. But I wouldn't want to trade up. Now, with the people I talk to and stuff, and you have to, you know, from different reporters around, watch out for the Redskins. You know, there was a report that Snyder was ready to go, and I called it full Ditka for anybody here that remembers Mike Ditka trading away an entire draft plus 2 picks the next year to get Ricky Williams, a running back. Was he ready to go full Ditka on Trey Lance? And if he is, that makes the Falcons pick very, very interesting, because, you know, I've said the Falcons need to trade out of this pick. And if they can pick up multiple high round picks, and what they've got is the Redskins have 4 top 100 picks. Yeah, you have to strongly consider that. So I don't know that he's going to be there at 9, and I don't know that I'd want to trade up to get him. I think he's a risk.
Yeah. And I think the bust rate for quarterbacks in the top 10 is like to 50%, 60%. So it's a risk no matter what. Mm-hmm. Really, for me, from where we sit, I'm not getting a chance to sit down and work with Trey Lance on the whiteboard or go through a film or a private thing. So if that's, you know, that would be the make or break for me. Or if a coach, like, we really hit it off, this guy's brilliant, okay, I'm gonna swing. Because if you don't have a quarterback in the league, I mean, we saw it. Obviously, it's not just the quarterback, but we saw it this last year. The quarterbacks left dancing in the Final Four. Josh Allen was a top 6 quarterback last year. Patrick Mahomes, top 6 quarterback last year. Tom Brady, top 6 quarterback last year. And NFC, who was the other one? NFC.
Probably the Packers. Aaron Rodgers,
MVP. Yep, exactly. The only guys who didn't.
Quarterback.
Yes, 100%. So it's always been a quarterback league. I think that's even truer today than it's ever been. So you need to get that guy if you don't have that. So a lot of people in here saying that the Broncos, we should pivot for a second. A lot of people in here saying the Broncos should give Drew Lock another chance. And I know that you say you kind of wash your hands of these guys once they go into the league, but where would you put Drew Lock coming out compared to the top, let's say, 5 quarterbacks in this class? Obviously, a lot of people were projecting the Broncos to look at Drew Lock in the first round. He slid all the way to pick 42 because of some accuracy issues, some processing issues. And these are 2 things that have carried over with him so far, and a lot of excuses for him. Obviously, we had a pandemic this year, lost his best weapon, new system again, but there's no way around it. I mean, it's just a fact. He was a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL this last year, and the Broncos have a chance to reset the quarterback clock, paying the guys, which matters, and maybe get an upgrade. So where would you rank Drew Lock out of these guys, and how much have you watched him since his college days?
The closest you put him with at this point would be someone like Trey Lance, without necessarily the running ability, because, you know, Trey Lance, I think, is a superior athlete. You mentioned he was recruited to play a defensive back position.
Yeah.
But he was raw. He was big and he had a lot of arm talent, but he was raw. So, that's a guy you take a chance on when you're recruiting. You can bring in a quarterback every year. And I think, he panned out well. He's got all the physical tools and stuff. But again, what's the makeup there? And when you mentioned, Trey Lance on the whiteboard and stuff, that doesn't even worry me that much because I can go get an Xbox player who plays Madden. And
don't say that. You're going to trigger Bronco fans.
He's going to be really good. He's going to be really good at the X's and O's part of it. But, going back to the old Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth. I want to know what he's got when the rush is in his face, when things are against him. And, the speed of that defense is howling at you. And, he hasn't faced that really ever, so that's what worried me. Drew Lock came out of the SEC. By the time, Missouri's been in there long enough, I'm pretty sure I can say that, that, he was facing higher levels. But, Drew Lock was probably taken where he should have been taken. You wouldn't have used a top 5, top 10 pick on Drew Lock.
Yeah. And I don't know how much you are into the advanced analytics, but one of the more advanced quarterback stats is a CPOE, which is completion percentage over expected. And it uses all next gen GPS stats and puts a quarterback's passing percentage to a certain spot on the field. And the denominator is every single pass to that certain spot of the field that's ever been completed. And you kind of get an idea of how accurate a quarterback is compared to the field. And Drew Lock in college and in the NFL has been bottom 3, bottom 5 in that. He's not, it's processing issues, it's accuracy issues, and it hasn't gotten better. So that's a concern. Obviously, I think he can get better. And I think getting Drew Lock or getting Cortland Sutton back is going to be huge for him because I think Cortland Sutton's a budding top 10 receiver, and you can have a general accuracy thrower with somebody like Cortland Sutton because he's that good of an athlete. He plays above the rim, unlike somebody like Jerry Jeudy, who probably needs a little bit more of a buttery ball because he gets that separation, and then you just need to lay it in there. It's a layup, whereas Sutton's more of a power player. But it's concerning for me. And if I was in charge, I would be looking. It's not totally Drew Lock's fault, but with how valuable that rookie quarterback contract is and how you can build rosters around that guy, and I have a chance to go reset that quarterback contract, I'd be looking to do that because the Bronco fans, did you guys enjoy going out there and paying Ronald Darby? Did you enjoy signing Justin Simmons, Garrett Bowles, Kyle Fuller, et cetera, et cetera? All those moves were brought to you by the Broncos having a rookie quarterback contract because otherwise you are strapped. And look at what the Vikings are dealing with right now, paying Kirk Cousins. You cannot fill out the roster when you're paying even an average quarterback, but it's just you're handicapped. So I would be about that. I think we should talk a little bit of Zach Wilson. It does sound like he is going to go number 2 overall. Speaking of pivoting, when I watch Zach Wilson, I see a lot of junior year Drew Lock. And maybe that's just me projecting a little bit, but sometimes a little bit of the wild mechanics. He doesn't drive off his back foot as often as you would like. And I do have some questions with him under pressure. Now, that said, I think he's a little bit better outside the pocket. Drew Lock sometimes loses his mind when he has to go off script. He has the athleticism and arm talent to do it. It's just the decision-making goes out the window. So I think Zach Wilson's better there. But what do you think? I think it's surprising to me that Zach Wilson is this consensus number 1 or number 2 overall quarterback when you got Justin Fields in there, who we'll get to last. And it does sound like the Broncos are keying in on if he's possible.
Yeah. When I watch Zach Wilson, I see gunslinger, and for me, for my generation, one of the original gunslingers was John Elway. Yeah. In that class of 83, I'm pretty sure he was class of 83, the famous one. I'm getting old enough now, I'm forgetting these guys. And also, 8 years later, the next guy was Brett Favre. So, I think he's got, when I'm making comparisons to arm strength, those guys are the top of the tier, Brett Favre and John Elway. I put Matt Stafford when he was coming out in that same type of class as far as arm talent goes. And Zach Wilson's not that far off of there. That's what people are falling in love with. But going back to what you were talking about with accuracy is number 1. We fall in love with a 99 mile an hour fastball, but if you can't command it, then you're going to struggle forever. And I think that's going to be the case. But if you look at Zach Wilson's numbers, and again, he's going to have more space than he'll ever have again in the rest of his career to make those throws, in not only with the rush in his face, but the receivers being covered. But his accuracy was solid. It was really good. So he's not only capable of extending a play, and he can run, but he's looking to be mobile to pass like a true NFL quarterback is, instead of looking for the first reason to bail and take off running. And I think he's really good. I personally like Fields a little better for maybe reasons that don't even have to do with what happens on the field.
Yeah, that's a good point. My biggest thing with Zach Wilson, and it's just you don't want to hold something against a guy for what they haven't done or haven't shown, but it just leaves question marks. And when I watched Zach Wilson, especially in that all 22, it becomes pretty apparent he has, space the size of Montana back there to navigate the pocket. He's not really having to navigate a top, really collapsing pocket. The only game where I saw that somewhat was Coastal Carolina. And that was a game where the results were a mixed bag for Zach Wilson. So obviously supremely talented. He does the stuff outside of structure that you're looking for a quarterback in today's game. Some people are saying, Aaron Rodgers that's a scary comp to make. But, the stylistically looking to make stuff and attack down the field, I do see some of that with Zach Wilson. There is a red flag with Zach Wilson is that shoulder surgery. That's something that will obviously be dug into. Teams will have to decide if that's a concern at all. Didn't look like an issue this last year, but you never know. So that is worth mentioning. So let's get to some of the supers here real quick. I just want to give some shout outs. Kareem, this morning show is awesome. Thanks guys. Kareem coming at us from North Carolina, I believe. So Kareem, we really appreciate you. Tommy Simmers saying, I see Paxton Lynch when I see Zach Wilson. I don't know about that one, Tommy, but you never know, right? That sometimes happens. We got Jess C coming in. The only good thing about Montana is they showed Broncos games on regular cable. Well, Jess, that is a good thing. I don't know. I'm a national parks guy. I love getting outdoors, backpacking and whatnot. And Glacier National Park. I mean, hello. Like let's put some respect. Also, Missoula reminds me of. I love those little college towns. It reminds me of Iowa City, back home for me. So yeah, let's. I think we do need. Oh, we got another one coming in here. Love this morning pod. Thank you very much, John. Say hello to your beautiful wife and daughter there. It's a cute picture. It's the size of like a penny on my screen, maybe even a dime, but looks like you're having a good time there. And we got a good question coming in here from Gary Leeds. I noticed BYU played a lot of second-tier teams. Has that been factored? So I'll let you handle this, Scott. I do think that you have to evaluate that, but it's also part of you have to isolate the talent from the supporting cast and the competition.
So it's a great question and something that I address a lot. And and one of the ways I address it is I'm from the state of Georgia, and most of the players that you've heard of, including the great Champ Bailey, played at tiny little schools in high school. Mm-hmm. So my factor on this has always been you can only dominate are you dominating the competition? You can only play against who's put in front of you. So, and the phrase I use on this is Herschel Walker was Herschel Walker, whether you put him at 7A Brookwood or single A Clinch County. He was still Herschel Walker. Adrian Peterson was still going to be Adrian Peterson. Do you factor it in? Yeah, a little bit, especially going to the next level. And that was what I said to sound like a complete hypocrite is Trey Lance. He hasn't done it for years. He was kind of an unknown. He hasn't had the spotlight on him the way that Justin Fields has, playing in the big games against a higher level of competition that if I'm making a pick, I know a little bit more about him. And if I'm choosing one or the other, that's a little bit of a factor. If I say which one of these guys is going to be more successful, now I'm looking at tools, and I think Trey Lance can be a really good NFL quarterback. But if I have to put them in order, and you ask us to do that, then the competition factor does play in a little bit. BYU plays some second-tier teams, and also the other factor on that is the maturation of the offensive line. They're usually playing with 25 and 26-year-old men on the offensive line. And a 25-year-old man is going to kick the crap out of an 18-year-old five-star recruit. So that in the trenches. So that factors in as well. Is sometimes a lot of times it's literally men against boys when BYU is playing against teams because of the more emissions that come in. So all of that factors in. I mean, there's so much that can make your head spin that a lot of times you go with your gut. Honestly, you go with your gut. A lot of times your first impression is the right one, and you can overthink these things. My gut tells me Justin Fields is the second best quarterback in this draft.
Justin Fields. Well, there's the prospect.
Second best prospect in this draft.
Oh, wow. Even so, you're putting him over the likes of Penny Sewell, who you rated very high, Micah Parsons, et cetera.
Quarterback. Second best quarterback prospect.
Okay.
Yep. Quarterback.
There we go. So, I do have I put a heavyweight on quarterback on my big boards just because, again, like I said, if you don't have one, pack it up. We'll see you next year. Good luck. I mean, obviously that's not a good spin for the media, but because you want to keep fan interest high. But I mean, you got to have a guy. It's just it's kind of like having a top 10 player in the NBA. If you don't have one, you can enjoy the product still, but your championship aspirations are depending on luck. So let's bring it to Justin Fields now. Obviously, he ran a amazing 40. That doesn't matter so much. It's more the arm talent and the athleticism. We talked about quarterbacks getting not these tall, gangly giraffes anymore, more of a 6'2", 6'3", but athletes. I mean, Justin Fields, modern day quarterback, and he has been nitpicked to death in this draft process. It's pretty crazy. There are some, obviously, Dan Orlovsky said some teams have a bad-mouthed his just how bad does he want it, the work ethic, which you talked about, accuracy being the most important thing for a quarterback earlier. On the field, I agree. Maybe in general, though, it's all the great quarterbacks have like an obsessive compulsive disorder level of love of the game and attention to detail. So that's something that you do have to wonder about. And if they're asking that about Justin Fields, is part of it some of the social factors that go into evaluating quarterbacks sometimes? I don't know. That's hard to say from where I sit. But I really love Justin Fields. He's been there. He's done it. And I think there's a little bit prospect fatigue when it comes to him. Zach Wilson is the shiny new thing. Oh, and we obsess over the Northwestern and the Indiana game with Justin Fields. Well, don't discount the other games. Dude was amazing. Dude's been out there making plays. He's got every tool you want. And if I'm the Broncos, I've said it for a while. If he's there at 4, I'm giving the Falcons a Godfather deal. I'm moving up for Justin Fields. I want that guy on my team.
All right, now let me get into this a little bit with teams are saying. Teams are saying, and let me translate this nonsense for you that you're hearing. Teams are saying, we hope he falls down to us. Yeah. That's what they're saying. Oh, we question his work ethic. God, I hope he drops. We question how bad does he want it? Geez, maybe I can get him down to 6 or 7. It's baloney. We talk about this all the time. Is there prospect fatigue? Well, not with Trevor Lawrence. Justin Fields is in play. The question isn't about Justin Fields. The question is who's going to take him? And if I can badmouth him to sources and talk him down a little bit and scare some rookie GM into not taking him, more power to me. Don't ever believe anything you hear publicly about these players. Trust yourself. Find someone you trust to be honest about it and say, I'll tell you what other people are saying about it. And I will also tell you what I think and why I think they're saying it. There aren't any questions about Justin Fields' work ethic. Not really. I think it's people trying to hope that they can knock him down a little bit because this isn't a recruiting thing where I have to convince somebody to come. If this was recruiting where I had to try and convince him to come, you would hear nothing but glowing things coming out, except for the people bad-mouthing him that aren't getting him. Because that's the translation in college recruiting is we're not getting him. That's what that is. At this point, they're hoping he does drop because he's a phenomenal prospect. And anybody saying anything any different is lying to you.
Do you think that any of this is also potentially coming from, and I've heard that this might be coming from potentially some sources connected to Penn State and Georgia, obviously 2 programs that he was associated with and then left, obviously committed first to Penn State, pulled his verbal recruitment or verbal commitment with Penn State, and then also left Georgia. I mean, they were going with Jake Fromm, JT Daniels. I don't know what's up with Kirby Smart. I don't know if you're a Dogs fan down there in Georgia, but Kirby Smart and these kind of quarterbacks that would have been good in the 1980s. I don't get it. But what do you think about that? Do you think there's any legs or merit to that?
Jake Fromm was a hell of a quarterback. And he came in and it really solidified the position he had. And Jake Fromm had 5 stars next to his name coming out of Houston County. So, there was no, and he was a hell of a college quarterback. So, what they're talking about him was that position was already closed to a certain extent. And it's a small window. You've got 3 or 4 years at most. Can you afford to sit around, or can I go and play at Ohio State and go play for championships? To me, especially with the fans and anything you read online, it's a lot of sour grapes. I'm always with the NCAA and how restrictive it is and immoral I don't even think that's too strong a word to tie these guys down. Meanwhile, each coach, the equipment manager can take a better job and get a raise, but we're going to tie these guys down who are actually generating all the revenue and make them sit out a year if they transfer. I'm very, very pro athlete when it comes to this, just because of the restrictive nature of the monopoly that is the NCAA and the NFL. But that's probably a different discussion. So I don't blame him for moving out. And if there's some talk about him, going out, like I said, I was sold the day he had that Ohio State team. Ask Ohio State, players what they think about him. Ask the Ohio State fans what they thought about him when Skalski about cuts him in half and he comes out there and leads them to a big win. Ask them what they think about him out dueling Trevor Lawrence on a national stage, and Justin Fields is a real deal.
Yeah, I mean, he's super talented. It does kind of remind me, I don't know if you remember the 2018 draft, about 24 hours before the first pick was happening, the Browns were on the clock. A bunch of old Josh Allen tweets surfaced using quoting rap lyrics, which, not the best look. You'd hope his PR team would have scrubbed that, but
tweet delete. Tweet
yes.
delete, everybody. If you are in the public eye, I recommend using tweet delete. I mean, I was in the public eye before social media, so I understand all of this really coming in, but I didn't grow up with it as a 12-year-old being able to say whatever I wanted to. So, tweet delete. If you're an athlete, put it on tweet delete and treat it like Snapchat and have it delete everything 30 days old. Just get rid of it. You don't need it. Anyway. Go ahead.
Unless you're like me, who likes to put out things, and then if they come true, you want to be like, "Look how brilliant I am! I said this was going to happen."
Yeah,
back
nobody
in
cares anyway. Nobody cares. People don't remember. In this business, people don't necessarily remember. It's not as bad with the NFL draft, but with college stuff, I found people don't remember right and wrong. They remember positive and negative. So if you say something negatively, I don't think this kid's very good. Well, then you're an idiot. It doesn't matter that I was right. I'm an idiot because I didn't think this guy was very good. It's better in the NFL draft, and it's more fun because you can be more honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's true with anybody and human nature, right? It's not what you say; it's how you made somebody feel. It's the feeling that they took away from the interaction that's going to stick with them. Humans are, empaths. So we want to get to obviously. I think the Broncos, they've been doing the work, and like I said earlier, James Palmer, said that the Broncos make sure everybody takes extra note of Shermer now going to both the second pro days of Justin Fields, who was yesterday, and Trey Lance, which is going to be next Monday. So go ahead.
Nick, the Falcons sent six coaches. They sent the max to Justin Fields. They sent 3 guys to the first one: head coach, offensive coordinator, general manager. That signals some intent. And then the second pro day, they sent wide receivers coach, quarterback coach, and a college scout. So, and then they've been at Trey Lance also. So, again, the Falcons had to talk up quarterbacks at that number 4 spot. And I said, look for the smoke screens to come out around Trey Lance and Mac Jones. And here come the 49ers and did it for us. If you're a Falcons fan, here the greatest gift to the number 4 pick has been Kyle Shanahan and Mac Jones, because Grant Cohn of 49ers, covers 49ers, is on here, and it's on my channel. He says flat out he thinks it's going to be Mac Jones. I asked Christopher Walsh last night. That was the latest one on my channel. I asked him, I said, are you hearing anything down here? He goes, the word down here is Kyle Shanahan has found his guy. They're going to take Mac Jones. So that puts Justin Fields in play, maybe Zach Wilson, Trey Lance in play. And now if you want a quarterback, that number 4 just became a lot more valuable. Thank you, Kyle Shanahan. They didn't have to talk up all these other guys. You did it for them.
I've been hearing Mac Jones as well. One of our guys also, Eric Trickle, who works with us on the site, has a direct 49ers contact that has been correct the last 3 years in a row, saying this is who we're going to take and target. And that's what's happened. So he's saying Mac Jones. So that's what I'm hearing. Also, I've heard that in Kyle Shanahan's contract, it's written in there that Kyle Shanahan, being the Don, right, actually gets to make that first round pick. Like his choice for the first round picks. It's in his contract. So
but I don't think he would have the ability to trade away 2 more first round picks, though. That's the thing. I mean, it's like, okay, you want Mac Jones, but wish they would have offered that one. If they offered that one to Atlanta and they turned it down, I'll be disappointed.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, also it was the front office was hoping for Trey Lance / Justin Fields, and there's a kind of a battle right now between what Kyle Shanahan wants and what the front office personnel people want. But in the end, it is going to be Kyle Shanahan's decision, even though they gave up all that capital to move up to 3. So,
and Nick, why they do that is because the front office is thinking long term. And the coaches are thinking, I gotta hold on to my job right now. So it made me think about our last, to circle back to Tuesday about Patrick Surtain. We were talking about the fit and how's he fit in a Fangio defense. That's not as concerning to general managers. They're looking for, if I need this position, I want the best player at that position. And can he fit there? Because you're hoping that your first round pick is going to be a 10-year pick. Yeah, that's the guy for the 10 years. In 10 years, you could play for 4 different coaches. Easy. So, that you can't draft for scheme nearly as much as you can for a positional need and the best player.
Yep. I mean, coaches hired to get fired, right? Like, what's the average lifespan? And people are like, oh, none of these quarterbacks fit Pat Shurmur. What's the average lifespan of an offensive coordinator in the league? 2.5 years, 1 year. I mean, yeah, for real. It's really, they do not last. And if they are good, they're plucked. If they're bad, they're gone. You're just going to have that turnover. So it's really important to consider that when you are drafting. We got Tom Branley joining us on YouTube. Thank you very much, Tom. Nice smile there. Was there anything about Fields' transfer to OSU that could translate to potential red flag to him being diva-ish in the NFL? So I'll let you handle this, Scott. I would say that's probably a no. But if there is anybody out there throwing out some, besides teams in the NFL throwing out some like, well, maybe he isn't the guy, I think it might be coming from Georgia somewhat. All it takes is one guy.
Oh, he doesn't want to compete. Well, yeah. I know he wants to compete on the field, which is what matters. And in the NFL, you've got a contract. So it doesn't matter if he doesn't want to sit behind, Drew Lock for a year or Matt Ryan for a year. It doesn't matter. You're getting a contract. You're getting paid millions. What I know is he competes his ass off on the field, and that's what matters to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't have very much time left. I do want to get your take. Obviously, we've talked about the big five in this class, which is what's interesting for the Broncos. But is there anybody farther down the draft that interests you? I know Davis Mills has gotten some hype from Stanford, but he's played less games than Mac Jones or Trey Lance. I know Kellen Mond has been there at Texas A&M for a while, a high recruit, and protects the football, but just not great accuracy. Jamie Newman, I'm kind of sad we didn't get to see him this year. So you're shaking your head. Should we just throw the rest of the quarterbacks out the window?
Jamie Newman, I wouldn't draft at all.
Okay.
At all. And, he was getting first round going around, and he looked so out of place at Senior Bowl. And he was bad. And that's not a great, I hate to make a statement on one showing, but he certainly didn't look like a first round guy. Kellen Mond, we get back to the accuracy issues a little bit. That scared me since I watched him in high school. It still scares me now. Felipe Franks, no. I don't think he's got the accuracy to play at this level. Looking at the board, Kyle Trask might be a guy. Mac Jones light to a certain extent that you take third, fourth round. But when you're talking about the drop off after the top five, it's pretty drastic. But then your risk reward isn't that bad. So if you're looking for a backup quarterback or a guy to sit for your, Kellen Mond could be your guy. Absolutely, Kyle Trask could be your guy. Davis Mills, he's got a lot of tools also. Another Georgia quarterback. I watched him over, 20 minutes the other direction. I was in a triangle of these three big quarterbacks, north, west, and east of Fields, Lawrence, and Mills in just a couple of years from where I am. So I watched him play live. He's solid. So, but anybody that you're looking to get in the, sneak into the first round, no way. I'll be very surprised. And there's a couple of the guys that I've seen that were hyped up early that I'm like, just no. It reminds me of when Christian Ponder got taken in the first round. I'm like, have we gone that quarterback crazy again? And I don't think we're there. I don't think we're there yet. But there is a pretty solid drop off after Mac Jones, Trey Lance, in my opinion.
Okay, well, we not much time left. I gotta get you on the books here. Let's hear your top five ranking for the quarterback position. Obviously, the Falcons are interested. The Broncos are interested. Maybe the New England come up. You said Washington football team maybe coming up, but I want to hear your top five.
For me, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 is pretty easy. It's Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. And then I have questions. I think Mac Jones is the safer pick. I think Trey Lance is the more exciting pick. If I need to win tomorrow, I draft Mac Jones. If I'm looking for a starter, I want Mac Jones. If I'm looking for a guy to come in and sit a year, I'm taking Trey Lance. So I think I hope that's not a cop out. If I'm starting a team, and it's an expansion draft, I'd take Trey Lance. Let's just go that way. I'd probably go Trey Lance. I like the upside there over Mac Jones, who I think is a safe pick. I think it's insane to trade 3 picks up to get him to use 3 first rounders on Mac Jones. I think that is a heavy price to pay.
Yeah, and not that he can't be good. And obviously, you've seen Kyle Shanahan have success with Matt Ryan, who has, I think, more arm talent than Mac Jones does. Kirk Cousins as well, but that doesn't seem like a number 3 overall pick in the price they paid. But we'll see. Everybody's saying Mac Jones. it seems so disconnected from what I perceive reality to be that I won't believe it until I see the name come across the screen.
Yeah, I agree. They're still looking at Justin Fields heavily, and I think that's your better pick. For me, and when Chad was on my channel, we talked a little bit about it. And for me, Zach Wilson and Justin Fields, it's almost a culture fit. Zach Wilson at BYU makes more sense in Denver, and Justin Fields from Atlanta, he doesn't have any. There's times where you want someone to get out of their hometown. We say that a lot about guys running with the wrong crowds. I don't think that's an issue with Justin Fields and coming here. He's got an immediate connection with Atlanta. For factor, I think he'd be ready to go. So I think he makes the most sense. In my opinion, for where I am in the South, for him to be the pick there. But I wouldn't have any problems with someone saying I like Zach Wilson. But the phrase I use is I don't argue levels of elite. They're both elite prospects. If you were to say you like Zach Wilson better, I'd say okay, that's fine with me. If you were to say Kellen Mond over one of those guys, I'd say now we got a problem. Now I question your judgment. But again, you never know how this is going to pan out. That's the beautiful thing about the quarterback position and the NFL draft is watching this down the line. Crazy things happen. That's why guys get drafted in the first round that are playing at North Dakota State.
Yep. I mean, it's imperfect science. There's the human element that you'll never be able to categorize. And you have drafts where guys like Mitchell Trubisky are drafted ahead of Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson as before the off the field stuff came about. So let's get to Zach Lee Butler's super chat here. Zach Lee joining us on YouTube. Thank you so much for the kind donation. And let's get to your question here. Honest opinion, guys. Well, we've been BSing everything before this, so now it's time to get honest, Scott. Does the trade up for a quarterback like it seems to be the rumor hurt the team as a whole, considering the large holes upcoming on the defense? So this is more of a team building perspective for question for the Broncos. And I'm going to say this to you. Every team has holes, no matter what. Every single year, you're going to have areas of weakness. The Broncos, when they won the Super Bowl, the offensive line was bad. The linebackers were just okay. You're never going to have a perfect team. And I would say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this last year were as close as you'd get to a perfect team. But that's kind of a weird situation with Tom Brady joining a team that had been middle of the pack, picking up higher, had higher picks to build around them. So does trading up for a quarterback seem like hurt the team as a whole, considering the large holes coming up on defense? I think your window doesn't even open until you have a quarterback. Defense is extremely volatile. It's dependent on keeping young guys on contract, guys staying healthy, and that fluctuates drastically year to year. I mean, we saw the Bears in 2018. Their defense regressed to top 10. They're a bad team. The Jacksonville Jaguars in 2017. Great defense, but terrible quarterback play. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. Defense regressed. They're irrelevant. So maybe if you miss in that quarterback, obviously that's going to hurt the holes on your defense. I mean, you got questions at linebacker coming up, edge rusher with Von Miller, boundary cornerback, one of the safeties, but you don't have a ticket to the dance until you have a quarterback. So, I mean, it doesn't even matter. People are like, oh, look at the Chiefs. They've been drafting terribly these last few years. The first team in NFL history to go host the AFC Championship 3 years in a row. Never happened before. The Chiefs did it. If you have a quarterback, it's the straw that stirs the drink. That comes first.
And for me on this, I want to see your salary cap situation. Okay, so can you fill in holes on defense with free agency, which I know the Broncos have been able to do to a certain extent. Talking about a team like the Falcons, they couldn't. They absolutely couldn't. So when you're talking about the 32nd ranked defense and you're paying $45 million on your cap hit to Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, drafting Kyle Pitts sounds moronic to me. It sounds moronic. Because you can't, they don't have the cap money to go out there. They had to redo contracts, cut everybody just to get under the cap to sign this class. So they had no room in free agency to fill holes on there. So going and getting another pass catcher for a top 10 ranked passing attack with a 30th ranked rushing attack, the 32nd ranked defense, and you're going to go get me Kyle Pitts? Really? That's insane. So a lot of it depends also to me on what else can you do in free agency. So trading up, because I actually wrote about that with the Falcons. If they really wanted Fields, I thought they were going to have to trade up. But you see how much it costs to trade up into the top 5, and that makes zero sense for me. When you're 4-12, 5-11, you can't mortgage the future in order to build for it, and that's what it would take to get a quarterback. The Broncos might not be in that same boat right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this team, with the injuries they had last year, losing a lot of one-possession games, in a class like this one. I mean, I don't know how much you're in the quarterback stuff, and I know I got to get going because of work, but I'm having too much fun talking quarterbacks here. A conversation point is obviously next year is yet to play out, but I would be pretty hard pressed to say that the 2022 class reflects 2021 in the top 5. Obviously, Sam Howell. Go ahead.
This is an 83 draft class for quarterbacks, you
Yes.
know, with Dan Marino, John Elway, and there were, I think you said Ken Anderson. I remember hearing his name. I think he might have been in that class.
I think he was.
This is a freak occurrence. Not only, you know, the first time I think a team like the Falcons is drafted in the top 5 since Matt Ryan, which is 2008. You know, and having these guys there, that's why you got to seriously think about taking a quarterback if you are the Falcons, even if you have one and have other needs, because you shouldn't have this chance again. And you see how hard it is to get a quarterback. Costs 3 first-round picks to trade up into the top 5, and that's for a good one.
Yeah. Yep. And I know that a lot of people are saying, for me, and I've said it since the end of November, you know, Drew Lock deserves another year. Well, he's had 18 games, which is more than a lot of guys get. And the results have been a mixed bag. I do think that Drew Lock could still turn it around. And I think that he could be a solid quarterback in the NFL because he has the tools. And I think that a lot of factors went against him last year. But it's never been so much about Drew Lock. It's been more about how talented I perceive the top quarterbacks are in this class this season. And if you're in striking distance, you have to look long and hard, because if there's a dude that you love, go get him, because that can change the direction of your team for a decade. And also another point, let's say you trade up and miss. But the Jets traded up and missed. They just recouped capital, and they're in the same situation where they can reset the quarterback. So those quarterbacks, for the most part, retain their value over time. And if you miss, you can trade and still accumulate assets. I mean, who was worse last year than Sam Darnold or Carson Wentz? Not many. Those guys got a bountiful return. So quarterbacks, for the most part, retain their value. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, and like you're saying, you know, you said a decade. It's even longer than that. You know, what is your 15-year quarterback worth 3 first-round picks? Yeah, it is. It really is. But it's just the question marks there. If you miss on it, oh man, it's high risk, it's high reward.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But from one of my favorite coaches, Bruce Arians, popular. I mean, it's a popular saying, but he says it a lot: "No risk it, no biscuit." And I think that's true with the quarterback as well. So. One last question before we get on out of here. I know we keep dragging along. I'm having too much fun, guys. I see the chat is having fun too. Everybody's saying this is a great show, enjoying the content. And I'm enjoying talking with you, Scott, as well. This is a lot of fun. Atlanta at 4. What if are you taking a quarterback or are you trading back? And obviously,
if Fields is there, he's my guy. I've said all along, if I have to stay at 4, 1, Justin Fields, 2, Penei Sewell, and 3, Micah Parsons. I think he's a top 5 talent. I think you can get him later. But if you said, you know, I saw a couple references in here. You know, Parsons, no matter what. I saw a reference to, the draft day. So, you know, I think Micah Parsons is a top 5 talent. I think he's the best defensive player on the board. I think he helps the Falcons the most right now. But you hope that you can trade back maybe with the Broncos and get the 9th pick and get Micah Parsons. And so for me, those are the 3 picks that make the most sense at 4. But again, I'll say it over and over: the Falcons need to trade back.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, you're obviously more connected than I would be with the Falcons, but Patrick Surtain at 9 for the Falcons is a name to watch as well, because there was some talk about him at 4 even earlier on. I think they got some eyes on Patrick Surtain.
They had a good rookie cornerback last year. So the scary thing is though they have to come out with 2 starters at safety in this draft class. So you're going to be talking about 3 rookies and a second-year guy in your defensive backfield with no pass rush. I guess Kyle Pitts makes sense. You better be able to hang 50 on somebody.
I mean, that's you listen to Nick Saban. Defenses make believe these days. You got to be able to put up points. So guys, that's going to do it for us. So we got let's check out the comments here real quick. Austin saying this may be my new favorite MHH show. We thank you very much. We got Zachary Ellis coming in. Lock deserves a chance of redemption. He knows it's put up or shut up time. At least we will have a definitive answer this season. I mean, you also have to risk weigh the chance to get a quarterback in this class, because next year, with how this Broncos roster is set up, they could be picking 18, 19, and then you're in the area where you're paying Andy Dalton or Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's not where you want to be.
And Nick, can you click on George Maravy real quick at 10:59? The Jets were patient. One more up. It said the Jets were patient. It said, George, the Jets were patient. Now, the difference here is Sam Darnold wasn't very good.
Yeah.
They traded 3 second-round picks to go up and take a mediocre guy that was graded that should have been a third-round pick anyway. That was just bad scouting, and they got in return they got something out of him. But what the Panthers traded for Sam Darnold was about what he was worth.
Yeah, nope. That's a great question. And Kareem coming in here also. Thank you very much, Kareem. And also, great show, guys. A great show. We appreciate you guys. It's fun content. I mean, I love the draft. Obviously, you do as well. This is the bread and butter. Next year's quarterback class really that bad? I would say it's not that bad, but it's in comparison to 2021, where you have 3 guys who could be number 1 picks in many years, and Lance, who would probably, I mean, especially if Lance would have played this year, probably a top 5 pick. Could have gone the other way. But next year, you got. I really like Malik Willis, but I love the video game kind of players. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, was a high recruit at Auburn. You're not a fan of Malik Willis?
No, it's just Malik Willis was in Roswell. He's from. You could start drawing a map, and it's like I'm putting off this energy. It's like, where does Scott Kennedy live? Well, let's draw a map of these quarterbacks. I was a big fan of Malik Willis. I was surprised he didn't. And I haven't kept up with him since he was a recruit at Auburn. And it's like it never hit off for him, but I was hearing great things about him. You know, there's talk about him being recruited. I think he was a Virginia Tech commitment as a defensive back at one point. I'm like, forget it. This guy's a freaking quarterback. Yeah. So I love being right. Didn't I tell you who I root for? I root for me. I was very high on Malik Willis, and I was surprised that he didn't have much success at Auburn. I'm like, well, I guess I missed on that guy. Well, maybe I didn't. So thank you. That just made my morning.
He last year, I mean, obviously it's kind of, he's still putting together some of the accuracy and processing stuff, but Liberty was a must watch last year for me because Malik Willis is instant offense. And what he's doing with Hugh Freeze and Liberty is hashtag all caps fun. I mean, he's so much fun. Sam Howell's obviously out there. Spencer Rattler, although while he has all the tools you want, there are some questions about the character from what I've seen and what I've heard. And then you also have Desmond Ridder and Carson Strong are some names to watch as well. Those are the top guys right now off the top of my head. I mean, not that they're not going to be a good quarterback class. I just think that 2021 is an outlier of how talented it is at the top.
Well, so, and that you don't want to be drafted in the top 10 again. You know, nope. That's the other part of this is if there are good quarterbacks, you got to go up into the top 5 to 10 to get them, usually top 5. And I don't know about you, but I don't think the Broncos should be drafting that high again. I damn sure don't think the Falcons should be. So this is really your chance to get a guy. And that factors into my decision of Justin Fields. It's not only that he's an elite prospect who's from Georgia in the top, you know, that could be the guy for the next 15 years. The Falcons should be an 8-8 team at minimum with the talent they have just on offense. So they shouldn't be in the top 4 again.
Yep. 100% preaching to the choir. I have nightmares of Drew Lock being a top, instead of bottom 5 next year, he's like top 25. Broncos make the playoffs, kind of like Trubisky, Bears, Bortles, Jags. And the Broncos like, well, we're kind of stuck in no man's land. Let's pay Andy Dalton $15 million a year. Like, end it all. That's terrible. That's not what you want. That's, oh my God, I would be so upset. Or trade for Kirk Cousins because the Peyton connection. That's not where you want to be, folks. You need a quarterback. That's just long and short. But I really appreciated it. Guys, we got to get on out of here. I got to get going to work. I got to do the 9 to 5 here. But guys, make sure you are following us on Twitter. This has been Breakfast for Broncos, a new show. We're going to be back at you guys live 8 a.m. on next Tuesday, and we're going to be there on Thursday as well. So follow us for leading up to the draft. Guys, make sure you also follow Scott and his YouTube channel at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. I'm going to drop his link in the chat as well for you guys. That way you can click on that and check out all his content. Scott, what do you said you had some Alabama tape on there? What's going on?
What we did yesterday is, and I've done this with a lot of the top prospects. I've gone to the source, you know, the local reporters there, because I like to hear what they have to say about the guys. And there's a great story about Landon Dickerson there doing cartwheels coming off ACL surgery that Christopher talks about. But Christopher Walsh, Bama Central, award-winning writer. We talk a lot about Mac Jones. We talk Patrick Surtain. We talk Najee Harris. Christian Barmore, maybe the top defensive lineman, especially in the middle in the draft, and what they think. I'm interested in how they feel they've progressed, but we've done that with Georgia, Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame. A lot of guys in there with draft picks that we're interested in. So a lot of times I'll cut them up separately, but I always have that little bar so you can click forward far enough to see the guy you want to hear the local guy and myself talk about. So, and then there's about 60 Senior Bowl video highlights on there too in a playlist. So lots of stuff. It's a big help to me if you hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all of you.
Yeah, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but man, Evan Neal. Oh my God, what an absolute unit for that Alabama offensive line. I mean, their offensive line was incredible this year. So much fun to watch. Guys, make sure that you are also following us on Twitter. You can follow myself at Nick Kendell MHH, and also follow Scott at Scout Kennedy. Make sure you're following us at Mile High Huddle, where obviously all of our written content is located, and follow this account at Mile High Huddle. Scott, what do you got the rest of the day? Taking care of the dog and the cats and the kids? No Champions League today, right? Oh, congrats, Chelsea. Chelsea, we did it.
Yeah, I got that on right here too.
Oh, there you go.
I got the badge on. You know, when we're talking Champions League week, we're gonna be Chelsea'd up. So yeah, that was nice. Got some Europa League later today. Arsenal, Manchester United, they're playing. Baseball practice. You know, we haven't been locked indoors. We've been playing baseball for a year in Georgia. You know,
there you go.
Much to the national media's dismay, we've been playing sports. So I've got baseball practice tonight, and then lots of stuff to do on YouTube, and hopefully answering a bunch of your questions about these guys. You put a question in the comments on my channel, and I promise you I'll answer.
Yeah, and also want to give a shout out to Zach Lee Butler for dropping the super today. We didn't miss you. I saw you. Don't forget my super. We got you in there. Good question as well. We really appreciate you. If you guys obviously drop a super, we're going to get to it. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Broncos for Breakfast. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions for us, or you want to hear something that we're going to talk about, add us on Twitter. You know, I'm very responsive on there. I know Scott is as well. So if you have something that you want to ask us personally, or you think this would be a really interesting topic, add us, and we will definitely get it to it. So appreciate you guys. Have a safe Thursday. Have a good weekend. Hopefully it's beautiful where you are, and God bless and go Broncos.